our website following tonight's meeting.
Okay, so just a quick recap because we're being recorded. I'm Dr. Kaplan. I am the superintendent for the next 2.5 months, and then Dr. John Stevens will be taking over. He was appointed Thursday night, defended his doctorate. He will soon be Dr. Stevens. We're not here to debate masks. We're here to talk about a layered mitigated approach. And we're asking, and I feel confident that everybody will be respectful at the end with their questions and their comments. We're all here to protect children, staff, and community. So with that, we will begin our PowerPoint. And again, I mentioned that the new incoming Governor Hochul has announced that she is looking to institute a mask mandate in school. If that happens, then that is not up for discussion any longer. So just like last year, we provided students with a robust education. There was a virtual option. We'll talk about that in a little while. This year, again, we want to start the year making sure that students have a robust educational experience and a safe, supportive learning environment. And we're looking forward to welcoming all of our students back in September.
And Dr. Kaplan already actually talked a lot about this, we did mute everybody right now just to make sure that the background noise didn't interfere with tonight's presentation, but we will allow those that have questions or comments afterwards to join in. And the chat feature is available that we'll try to monitor and kind of make sure that we address anything that's there as we go. And everything else Dr. Kaplan's already mentioned about being a public, not up for debate, be respectful, and we all have the same interest, and that's the safety of our students and our staff.
Mr. Stevens, do you know why there's, oh, we're doing closed caption at the bottom. Never mind. Thank you. I'm reading it. It's a little off at times, so it's a little distracting. Okay, so the layered mitigation protocols, which we talked about, that means that blue means we have a very low infection rate. Then we go to yellow, then we go to orange, and we go to red. We are in red right now. So we actually start with the best case scenario and go to the worst case scenario, which is where we are right now in the red zone based on Albany County's rate of transmission and infection. So we're going to carefully monitor the various stages and implications of COVID-19. A measured approach will be taken and adjustments will be made to mitigate efforts based on CDC's information of levels of transmission and/or rate of infection. Our priority is the health and safety of everybody in the school district and in the community. And we're going to support the social, emotional, mental health of students and staff. And we've done a number of things to ensure this happens. We've hired some long-term substitute teachers to help make some smaller class sizes at times. We've hired some extra lunch assistants to make separating the students and social distancing more feasible and doable. We have hired a maintenance company to help us with cleaning and sanitizing.
And this is that leveled approach, the CDC guidelines that Dr. Kaplan was just talking about. And this is, again, a lot of the next couple slides can be found on our website. It was included in the email that was sent out from the district. So you can link to this, you can check this out. This was the layered mitigation approach that the board approved at their last board meeting last week. And again, this just speaks to the CDC levels of infection rate throughout the county. And that's what will be used to kind of gauge the protocols in each of those steps. The protocols, again, like Dr. Kaplan said, low community transmission to high, and currently Albany County is in a high community transmission based on the infection rate. And we went through and kind of outlined each of the spaces or each of the priority areas as we go through this. Of course, it didn't capture every single thing, but I think one of the most important here is starting with vaccines and testing. And again, the district is encouraging vaccinations. If you have not had a vaccination or you have maybe a student that is newly eligible because they just recently turned 12, Our school-based health clinic is open this upcoming, or it was open this past Tuesday, the 17th, and then again next Tuesday, the 24th, for appointments. You can call. There's information on our website to call Whitney Young. They will schedule an appointment. I think we actually just added in another half day on September 2nd that there will be available appointments as well. So that's available to you. Ongoing testing for COVID testing, rapid tests, that is the surveillance testing that will occur. 20% based on parent consent for being in a high zone, and then 10% for substantial. And the other item, face masks, currently, if it's a moderate, substantial, or high community transmission, we will require face masks here for all students and staff. We'll continue to monitor this on a weekly basis. It's hard to transition in the middle of a week, so we'll make sure that we monitor the infection rate. We work very closely with Albany County Department of Health, and we'll make those changes on a week-by-week basis. And social distancing, in order to accommodate all students and back in person on a full-time basis, we are looking at a 3-foot social distancing. That has been some advice given to us from local health departments that a 3-foot distancing is allowed in schools currently. So that's where we'll move. That's where we'll move forward.
I just want to add one thing, that with the layered mitigation, much like we had last year with testing, vaccines towards the end of the year, cleaning, sanitizing, we didn't have transmission in school. We had COVID cases, isolated cases. We had adults that had COVID. We had children that had COVID, but we did not have transmission in school because we had all of these protocols in place and were followed strictly.
Okay, and that continues. I mean, we continue with looking at school visitors and restrictions in place to make sure that students and staff are safe in school, limiting the amount of visitors and who is in the building based on the level of transmission. We'll continue, and it's the same all the time: hand washing etiquette, respiratory etiquette. I think that those are common things that we're all going to be doing as a society moving forward. And it's important to notice that the contact tracing will look to be roughly 6 feet. All of this is based on Albany County Department of Health and the protocols that they put forth. And anyone that would be within that perimeter may be contacted for contact tracing and quarantining, and that is done in conjunction with Albany County Department of Health.
Mr. Stevens, talk about if you're vaccinated and how the 6 foot is different from last year, please.
Yeah, currently, if you are vaccinated, the Albany County Department of Health will err on the side of caution, saying they recommend wearing a mask at all times, monitoring your symptoms, but a quarantine is not needed. You can continue coming to school, you can continue coming to work, and monitor those symptoms for anything that increases. So that's very different than before. And we know that the age comes into play with vaccines only eligible for those that are 12 and over. So we'll continue to monitor that, and we'll make sure that the nurses are able to check the contact lists to validate vaccination status at any time that contact tracing is needed. But I think it's important to make sure that everybody, staff, students, everyone knows that if you feel sick, to stay home. I think that that's an abundance of caution to make sure that you are staying home. And in order to return, those will be determined by Albany County. Last year, if you were going to return after feeling ill and having a symptom, it required a negative COVID test or 10 days of quarantine. Those have been relaxed somewhat, and we're waiting for Albany County to update us on what that looks like for the coming school year, but it's going to depend a lot on case-by-case situation, and they have caseworkers that will investigate all kinds of symptomatic individuals and contact tracing that needs to occur. Cleaning and disinfecting continues, and we make sure that we wipe down high-frequent areas and high-touch areas throughout the school, doorknobs and water fountains and that kind of stuff. And this year, looking at the cafeteria, without masks on while students are eating, we're looking at a 6-foot distancing there. They're not going to have masks to be more cautious, more aware. That's kind of where we are. We're going to talk a little bit more about cafeteria as we go on. I noticed that somebody had sent a question to me about daily attestation. Currently, we don't have the daily attestation in effect for students or staff this year. It was not part of a requirement that's needed, but we do ask parents to monitor their children's symptoms, and if they recognize that their kids are sick, to continue keeping them home until they feel well. Outside, obviously, that's where we want to maximize our time outside as much as possible, whether that be PE, whether that's recess, whether that's bringing your class out to read a book. Masks are not required outside unless we are in a high community transmission. That's the only time that masks are going to be in the red. Ventilation and air quality. If you don't know, we have MERV filters that are being replaced. Actually, I saw them out in the hall. They're being replaced right now throughout both buildings. The bus transportation, masks are required at all times, and that is actually not anything to do with us. That's through CDC. That's regulations that they put forth for public transportation across the entire country.
That being said, all of our transportation routes, we're keeping them under 15 minutes. So students will not have to be on a bus any more than a max of 15 minutes. And that helps with quarantining as well, if need be.
Absolutely. You keep jumping ahead. That's another slide too. This one talks all about high risk activities, and that's both the athletics, that's the arts. Currently, if we're in a moderate, substantial, or high zone, it will be masks for participants and spectators. If it's indoors, we'll ask for social distancing. We'll use band covers or bell covers, in band, and we'll limit spectators based on the zone that we are in. So based on the number of capacity of the area, in yellow, we'll limit to 50% of the capacity of that area. In orange, it would be 2 spectators for indoors per participant. And then unfortunately, if we're in red, spectators would have to watch our live streaming because we won't allow spectators in during red if it's an indoor event. Additionally, any high risk sports students, we will, if they are unvaccinated, we're going to conduct weekly surveillance testing. And again, that's rapid tests. We get the results back in 15 minutes. Our nurses can do them right in the health office. And again, that's for unvaccinated students. So we continue to encourage and recommend all eligible individuals to get vaccinated so that we can keep everyone safe.
I just want to add that although we don't have the word mandated here, if somebody's going to play a sport and choose to not be vaccinated, they are going to be asked to be tested. They can't have it both ways, not vaccinated, not tested, and putting other children at risk.
Yeah, and that's a really high point for Albany County, the Commissioner of Health in Albany County, about high-risk sports. And in fact, the recommendation really is, if you cannot have high-risk sports in a red zone, they would truly like to see that happen. And we understand the need to return to normal. We understand, the importance of having athletic opportunities for kids. So, we think that by encouraging vaccinations and conducting weekly surveillance testing, that will help recognize any transmission if we see it in any of our after school activities. There's a little slight difference in outdoor events. If things are happening outdoors, spectators are not limited until we get to orange or red. And again, even in red, since it's outdoors, we would still allow 2 spectators per participant. Masks are only needed outdoors if we're in a red zone. But again, the surveillance testing continues just like being indoors. Let's talk a little bit about instruction and what that's going to look like back in the school building. Our goal is to get all students back in person all the time. There's nothing like live instruction, modeling, in engaging interactions that happen between students and teachers and between students and students. So we're going to hope that everybody can return in person. Pre-K through 8th grade will continue to monitor and run those classes in either classrooms. We kind of referred to those as pods last year. So that'll be very similar. Students will have that safe space that they'll be with the same students for many of their classes. And, you know, it's very similar to elementary school. They're used to that down there. In our high school setting, 9th through 12th, in order to maximize their schedule and get them the courses that they need, they will be allowed to rotate classrooms. Hopefully a large portion of our 9 through 12 students will be vaccinated, so that'll help. And we'll make sure that there's cleaning products so that desks can be wiped down before and after classes so that students feel safe. And additionally, encore teachers are going to push into classrooms. So very much like last year, art and music will push in. Any health classes for some of our middle school students will push into the classroom. But the good thing is that we aren't using our gyms for classrooms this year. So we'll be able to allow students to get out of that classroom for PE, whether it be outdoors, running on the turf, you know, down in the softball field at the elementary school, or in the gyms during the winter. We'll make sure that our students are up moving around during PE classes. Also, because of the 3-foot distancing that we're using in classrooms, we're able to return our academic interventions, some of our math and reading specialists, back to their programming and not in a classroom setting. So that's exciting for Mrs. Webster and Mr. Grote to be able to utilize those support services and really attend to the needs that students have in our classrooms. Dr. Kaplan mentioned earlier supporting students' mental health and well-being. If you didn't know, we did hire a additional social worker at the elementary school. So that's going to be a benefit to students. We have more support for students in the coming year. And thinking about technology, we went to a one-to-one device last year at the start of the school year, and we'll continue that this year. We have Chromebooks ready. They'll be ready on the first day. Students will have them. Google Classrooms will be utilized continually throughout the year. And our teachers and students will be prepared to go remote if the transmission increases, and that's the recommendation from the local health departments.
I just want to say that last year, the few times that we did have to turn the entire building remote was due to people being quarantined. It wasn't necessarily due to a large number of positives. It was adults being quarantined. The majority of our staff, I'm comfortable saying 98% of our staff is vaccinated now. So that should not be an issue, quarantining of adults this year.
And the only other thing to talk about with instruction right now is really the year-long remote learning is available. If there's medical documentation, we know that there are some situations that students and families are in that it would require remote learning, and we are able to collaborate with Capital Region BOCES and several of the regional school districts to make sure that there's an opportunity for those students to engage remotely. It was difficult for teachers to navigate between in-person learning and teaching remotely, and having live streaming occurring during their classes and going back and forth between the computer and the in-person learners. So we're trying to avoid that. The important part is here that all students hopefully will be in class. We know that there's going to be some quarantines possibly, and there will be opportunities or situations when students will not be in the classroom, but our teachers will be prepared to make sure work is available, and we'll have remote options and check-ins set up for those situations on a kind of a case-by-case basis.
I just want to talk a little bit more about the Capital Region, the Cap Region option for students with a medical. So for K-6, if a child has a medical reason why they cannot come to school in person, they'll be able to do remote learning like they did last year. However, it will not be a Waterville City School District teacher. They will not have Waterville children in their classroom. So there might be 2 children from Voorheesville and 2, let's say it's a 4th grade class. There's 3 4th graders from Waterville. There's 3 from Cohoes. There's 3 from Voorheesville. There's 3 from Shen. They're in a remote classroom amongst themselves with a teacher, be it could be a Shen teacher, could be a hired teacher from outside. They have to commit to a year. They can't come back in. It's too disruptive. So if a parent needs a medical, we will honor that. It's with a doctor's note and it's for an entire year, just understanding that the child is not going to be taught by a Waterville classroom teacher, and the options for the high school students will be limited. They'll get their core courses, but they'll be doing distance learning. Again, same thing. It'll be students from all around the CAP region, 24 component districts. We can't promise that if you take CAD class, computer automated design at the high school, that you will be able to take that in a distance learning class. We don't know that it'll be offered. So you'll get your core basic classes and whatever else is offered, but it is a year-long commitment.
Let's talk a little bit about time, and I'm sure, when we're done with this, Mrs. Webster will pop on and share some as well, but we are going to move both primary and intermediate school students, K through 5, back to their normal, if you will, beginning and end of the day. So back to pre-K arriving at 8 o'clock in the morning and an 8:30 arrival for elementary school, and then pre-K dismissal at 2 o'clock and the K through 5 dismissal at 2:35. Our hope is to be able to offer after-school activities. We did continue to receive the extended school day grant. So our hope is to really make sure that we can give kids as much of a robust educational experience as we can. Art club and drama club and after-school band and all of those activities that they're used to. High school is a little bit more complex, but I tried to bold it here for you so that you could kind of see we are going to be able to offer 8 periods for students, but in order to minimize the large number of students coming into the building, 6 through 8, grades 6 through 8 will start at 7:30 in the morning. So their school day will be from 7:30 in the morning to 1:30 in the afternoon. And 9 through 12, our high school students will start at about 8:10 and finish at about 2:11 in the afternoon. So keeping them at slightly adjusted schedules allows us to make sure that we have lunch coverage in order to get everybody safely into the cafeteria for lunches. And also arrival and dismissal doesn't have 700 plus students walking in the front doors at the same time. So we're able to kind of maximize our staff and our students to limit some of that confusion and make sure that there are 2 separate times. So those are pretty important. Mr. Grote will have some more information. I'm sure that there's more information coming as we get closer to the school year. But I wanted to make sure that everyone recognized the 2 different arrival times for middle school and high school students this coming school year. Want to talk about food service?
Go ahead. Go ahead. You can finish. Go ahead.
All right. Food service talks about, again, we mentioned earlier, 6 feet distancing in the cafeteria. Mrs. Webster was happy to take a couple pictures for me. We set up the gym at the elementary school. Obviously, we can't fit all students in a grade level in the cafeteria at 6 feet distancing. So we will be using one of the gyms at the elementary school as a additional cafeteria space. And we'll be using the small gym up here at the junior senior high school as additional cafeteria space. But we're pretty confident that we can make sure we get 6 feet distancing between all desks. And we're able to make sure kids still get the great experience that they have for lunch. Breakfast is a little different of a story, and that's gonna really be logistical based on the classroom, the arrival time of students, and setting up safe spaces in the classroom for students to eat. So we're still working on breakfast. It's kind of a catch-22. Obviously, we don't have the space in the cafeteria to allow all students in at once to eat breakfast safely. But we think if we can work out different arrival times and buses arrive at different times at the elementary school, and we can work out some logistics to make sure that teachers allow safe spaces in their room for students to eat and be the 6 feet distance.
We talked about seating charts multiple times, and I can't stress the importance enough, because the way it's been described to us is it's either a full class quarantine or they use a scalpel. And by a scalpel, it's those students that are in a 6-foot radius. So if we're unsure, we give your child a seat on the bus, they have to sit there. Otherwise, they may end up having to quarantine when they really don't need to, if they had moved their seat. So that's why we're really strict about, making sure that we have seating charts for all situations, all classrooms, transportation, cafeteria, because then we can quarantine the fewest number of children if need be.
And that runs right into transportation, exactly what you were just saying about seating charts. Again, we're reworking our bus routes to make sure that bus routes are under 15 minutes. That and the use of masks for all students on the bus will allow us to put 2 students per seat. It'll allow us to make sure that we can get all of the elementary school students to school at the same time. And I think that we'll be able to go with that. A note from Mrs. O'Brien, our transportation coordinator, that she is finalizing bus routes right now, and postcards should be in the mail by August 24th. So you should be able to look for those. And
one thing, if your child received transportation in 5th grade at the elementary school, they will still receive transportation in 6th grade. Once they reach 7th grade, they have to live further than a mile away in order to get transportation. So 5th and 6th grade will still get the same transportation. It changes in 7th grade.
Perfect. That's really all we have. Just so you know, again, the protocols, the layered mitigation protocols are on our website. You can check those out at any time as they get updated, as new guidance is sent to us. They are subject to change, and we'll make sure that those get updated. I'm going to stop sharing, and then we can go to some questions.
I see a question from Mark. I think maybe that's something you might want to call guidance about, because that's an individual scheduling issue. Unless, oh, sorry. Wanted to ask about, can she alter such as band? My daughter is a senior this year, mentioned she has 6 periods excluding band and study hall, no foreign language. Wanted to ask about that. And also, can things she has scheduled to be altered such as band? Okay, so foreign language, I don't know how many years she has taken. I would suggest calling her guidance counselor, because foreign language only goes up to a certain level. So I don't know how many years she's taken it. And as far as band, yes, she can opt in, opt out before school starts, of course. So I think calling guidance is probably the best bet for that. Well, that's a good question. Is there any kindergarten? Okay, these are coming fast and furious. We'll do the best we can. So is there going to be any kind of kindergarten orientation, I think is the question. Mrs. Webster,
I just unmuted Mrs. Webster to
Thank
share
you.
about that.
I got right. We send home a letter tomorrow where you will receive a note. This is just for kindergarten families with your child's teacher. And then you are invited on September 2nd to meet and greet the teacher, as well as drop off supplies. Unfortunately, at this time, we're not going to let anyone into the building. If you have a special situation because your child was remote or in UPK, feel free to contact me and we can discuss that independent of this.
Okay, kindergarten, I will be dropping him off. Is it at the same location? Yes, kindergarten drop off is the same.
So last year we used a separate door for our kindergarten families. This year, actually, we're going to all use the same door.
Sorry.
That's okay. We'll be receiving you at the loop, but there will be many people there, so not to worry. Lots of people on the first week.
And then Mr. Grote, I think that you're unmuted now. If you want to talk just a little bit about lockers, I think we talked about 9 through 12, being able to utilize them, at least for arrival and dismissal.
Yeah, last year we were able to not use lockers for grades 6 through 8, and that worked really well. So this year we plan on doing the same. But at the 9 through 12, we know that students you're gonna need to be able to use lockers because there's a rotation. But what we're going to do is really talk to the students about the timing in which the best time to use lockers will be, such as the beginning of the day, end of the day, and try to reduce any of that during the day, back and forth to lockers and touching lockers. And with the one-to-one Chromebooks this year, just like last year, it should really reduce the amount of materials and supplies students will have to travel with. So we think we'll be able to keep our building a little safer by just reducing the times throughout the day, 9 through 12.
You also have a question on here, Mr. Grote, about when will their schedule be put in the parent portal?
We actually there's a little confusion with this because there's a thing called flip the bit when we change over schedules. So accidentally that portal was open for a few seconds. So if a student has gotten a schedule, it is not accurate. It's been closed, but we plan on sending out the portal next Monday, I believe, is when we're going to officially release all the schedules. So if you've gotten something, we apologize. We just didn't close it from last year, so that whilst guidance counselors are working on schedules, there could be some things in there that are inaccurate. So next week would be the best time. We'll send out a message letting everybody know the official date and time. That way, if there's anything on your child's schedule that's not there or a question, then we can certainly work through the guidance counselor to figure out how we can best suit the student and your needs.
Okay, is there going to be 6th grade orientation?
Ms. DeNovio, 6th grade orientation, I believe we do have a plan for 6th grade orientation. I don't know if we've finalized it yet. We were waiting to hear some of the guidance and whether we're going to actually do something remote or if we were going to bring students in. But that's another thing I'm going to have to talk to some middle school with the plans and find out if that's what we're going to do this year.
Okay, 7th and 8th grade starts at 7:30. Last year they had foreign language remote. Would the day be longer to include foreign language class? Yes, they have foreign language in their classroom, but it's on a rotating basis, right, Mr. Grote?
Yes.
Mr.
Yep,
Novo?
it all fits in their schedule this year.
Okay,
There was a question about arrival at the elementary school, and just to clarify, K through 5 is all arriving at the same time, so it's not different arrivals. They're all arriving at the exact same time, 8 to 2:35.
I'm trying to, oh, sorry, I wasn't on mute typing, but I'm trying to answer them as we go, and I'm just putting the name, whoever received.
all right, so Mrs. Webster, teacher assignments for elementary school. You're muted. Now you muted yourself. Mr. Stevens. come on.
Friday, we'll be out Friday.
Okay, stay unmuted. Book bags. Book bags?
At the elementary or high school? Yes,
Not-
book bags.
Okay, so book bags are a yes at the high school, Mr. Grote?
Book bags, absolutely, they can bring them, but we're going to ask everybody to only bring what's needed, just so we don't clutter any classrooms, especially grades 6 through 8.
Okay, back to kindergarten orientation. Can they come in, parents come in or not?
So we're all meeting on the front loop. When you get your letter tomorrow, it will tell you what time your teacher will be meeting you on the front loop outside on 10th and 25th. So you'll all have the opportunity to park your car, get out, meet your teacher, drop off supplies.
Yes, Samantha, your first grader will be met out front by adults at the elementary school. And parent pickup at dismissal, Mrs. Webster, for elementary.
What time is it? It starts at 2:35.
Okay. Is there a way you can go in the building as a first grader if he was remote last year? I think that's a question a lot of parents have. If their child was remote last year, can they come to the
Give
building?
me a call. I'm there every day, 7 to 3. So if you want to give me a call for situations like that, certainly, if it's your child's first experience, I'd be happy.
I think it's important to know, so parents that are all very concerned, we have every adult possible at the doors on the first couple days of school to help walk students, to show them where they need to go. So there's a lot of people, there's going to be a lot of support to make sure if your child was remote before, or if they're joining us in kindergarten, or it's their first day, they'll get to where they need to go, and there'll be somebody that's going to be caring about them and show them the way.
All right, we have a 6th grade parent who ran into the situation I'm talking about, that their child should be bused. Lisa, I'm going to ask that you call Ms. DeNovio tomorrow morning, and Ms. DeNovio, if you can look into this, that would be very helpful. High school will be able to use backpacks. We already answered that, right? Yes, they can. Yes, they can use lockers. UPK orientation, do we have UPK orientation?
There is a UPK orientation. It'll be held very similar to kindergarten. It'll be on September 1st, on Wednesday, September 1st in the afternoon. And I think a letter is
Went out today.
headed in the mail. Yep.
Okay, proof of vaccination to the nurse. Nurses have access to the nicest website, which is the New York State immunization website. So nurses can look up vaccinations. Ms. Mr.
I see a
Valentine,
question
thank
for
you.
6th grade on there about rotating classes. 6th, 7th, and 8th grade will be in pods, so they're going to be in classrooms. The teachers will do the rotating. So 6th graders will be staying put in their classes.
Okay,
And there's
Mrs.
also a question as far as drop off and pickup. And 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, when they come in, classes start at 7:30. So we're going to be opening our doors 7:15 in the morning, allow students to come in so that we can take care of the breakfast needs. And pickup will be right at the end of that schedule that Mr. Stevens put out. So I think it's around 1:26, I think, if I recall correctly.
Mrs. Webster, 4th and 5th grade lockers.
Yes, they'll be available.
Okay. 6th grade drop off and pickup. Mr. Grote, I think that should be on our website.
7:30 and 1:29.
Vision tests this year as well as physical. Do I need to go get a vision test for my child, or do you guys do? We do them at school.
Yep. Eye and vision tests are done at school.
If you needed any vaccinations, the school nurse would have sent you a letter by now.
Wow. We flew through those. Anybody want to unmute and ask a question or make a comment? Can they unmute themselves, Mr. Stevens? Or not? Or just put in the chat that you have something to say. If there's anybody that would like to say something or ask another question. Getting recess? Yes, there will be recess. We're going to have them outside as often as we can. Go ahead, Mrs. Webster.
Prior to the lunch period, there is a 20-minute recess.
Everybody should have the option to unmute themselves if they have something that they want to say. And before that happens, lots of people in there thanking us and saying, you know, amazing job. We do this for the kids. So, you know, thank you for your kind words. We appreciate all of your support.
And civility, because I've seen many of my colleagues have not had the same outcome that we had this evening. So I really appreciate people being kind and appreciative of all the hard work that's gone into this.
Before and after care, yes, that is still available. The Civic Center is working on things as we speak, but yes, that'll be available.
This year's going to be, you know, last year it was the unknown, and I think people were really patient. And this year people are expecting a lot of normalcy, as are we, and hoping for it. We didn't see this coming, the Delta variant. So as things change, we have to change. And that's why it's a tiered mitigation approach. It's also a fluent chart. So it's going to change as the new governor comes on, as CDC changes, we're hearing that the infection rates have peaked and that they're supposed to start leveling off and going down. We hope that's the case, because then we move out of the red zone. So sports for children under 12 that can get a vaccine. We don't really have sports for children under 12. Mr. Waring, do you want to address that?
Yeah, we have a number of youth sports through the youth leagues. There's only a couple that we run in school, primarily the basketball in the winter. We got a long way to go before we get to that.
There is a separate application for after school childcare if you need it. It's through the Watervliet Civic Center. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but I'll find it and put it in the chat box.
Okay, Joanna, youth sport is different. It's not sponsored by the Watervliet City School District. Youth sports are sponsored by the city of Watervliet. It's a little bit different.
I have a question.
Okay.
When it comes to sports for the high school, do they have to wear masks outside? I'm sorry, I got on a little late. I'm assuming you covered the whole mask thing, but I kind of missed it. So I'm just trying to get a recap on that.
Go ahead, Mr. Waring.
Jerry, that's going to be completely dependent about what zone we're in. If it was to be right now in a red zone, we are looking at masks, but that's going to change with the rising and lowering of numbers in the county.
So for recess, for the younger kids in the elementary school, if they're outside, they still have to have masks on. Is that correct?
Our hope is that everyone would be able to stay 12 feet outside and therefore they could take them off. During summer school this summer, we were able to take them off and play freely.
Okay.
And we have multiple grade levels going out at once for recess, but we have, Mr. Faust and I have divided the playground into areas. So classes are staying within their pods, if you will.
And part of our building project was to replace and repair some of the equipment at the elementary school. And so there's hoops up that are lower so the students can reach them, and some games painted on the back of the playground. We're also fixing the fence back there.
It looks amazing.
So as the weather gets colder and the children have gym inside, how is that going to look?
The gym is large enough where we're able to accommodate 2 classes, and that's what we have scheduled right now, 2 classes at a time, and they'll just stay on their sides of the core, but there's plenty of room to socially distance as well. Given the fact that they're inside the building though, they will need to wear a mask.
If we're still in red. Now,
Right.
we could be in the blue zone by wintertime, and then it's business as usual. So blue is low infection and transmission.
So vaccinated or not vaccinated, it's all masks, correct?
Correct. Staff
Oh.
and students, yep. But then
Okay.
as we move to the left of the chart, masks can come off. So
I think that we've learned that it's really literally a day-to-day basis. So
Right.
I just figured I'd like to know for the first week of school.
so would we. So would we. So what we're not going to do is, like, if we're red today, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then tomorrow we flip to yellow, we're not going to change what we're doing till the following Monday. So we finish out the week. So we're not bouncing in and out. I mean, you know, it could be red for 3 days, then we go back to orange, and then, you know, we dip in yellow. We're not sure. So we're trying to take this probably a week at a time.
And then dismissal for 9th through 12th. I mean, I'm just trying to figure out the times for all of them.
9 through 12 is from 8:10 in the morning till 2:11 in the afternoon.
Okay, so 7:30 is the 6th grade through 8th.
Yep.
8 o'clock is elementary, and then 8:10 is the high school students.
Yeah, actually, elementary is 8:30.
Oh, 8:30. Okay.
Middle school, high school, elementary.
And it will be right on our website. Exactly
right.
what you saw tonight will be on our website.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And all the administrators are working this summer, so you can call either school with any questions or concerns.
Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you very much.
And yeah,
You're welcome.
the PowerPoint as well as the recording, as soon as it's available, probably by morning, will be loaded onto the school website.
Great.
We appreciate everybody sending their children back to us. And, you know, we want to be safe as much as keep your children safe. So we can't stress vaccination enough. Like I said, I am really proud that 8th graders can ride the bus if they live further than a mile away, south of the Arsenal. Yes, children can bring their lunch. Vaccination, like I said, I'm really proud. Our staff is 98% vaccinated. So your children are going to be in front of adults that have been vaccinated for that extra layer of protection. Mr. Grote, you want to talk about to this one, Amy?
Does it say I have a 7th and 11th grader that is my option for drop?
What is my option for drop off? She can't do separate times.
I would encourage you to call me so that we can kind of work through something that works for students. Obviously, we want to keep the kids safe. And I want to make sure I have enough staff outside and available. So if we need to drop them off, I just have to find something for the 11th grader to do. I'm sure I can work that out on an individual basis. We might even be able to encourage that 11th grader to participate in a program, because we do have some students that are participating in some independent PE and also band. So I'll have to look a little closer at it, but if you shoot me an email or give me a number to call, I'll call you right back and we'll work something out.
Questions, comments, concerns? Led by Amanda Kavanaugh, board president. Without the support of our board, truthfully, this wouldn't even be happening because they approved the plan that the administrators and the opening committee worked on. So thank you, Mrs. Kavanaugh.
Somebody sent a direct message to me about their child having anxiety. Hey, if that's the case, I encourage you to reach out to Mrs. Webster or the school counselor so that we can set up a plan. We're welcome to bring them back early, have them find their classroom, walk through what the process will be. We'll support them the best that we possibly can. The other part, another question was about if you get sick. So again, we're working through some of the logistics, but if there's quarantines, if there's illness that takes time, just as teachers have always done, they're going to make sure that there's work available so students can continue learning. The good thing about having Google Classrooms is that everything's there in Google. It's pretty quick and easy to access. So they'll have that availability for easy access at home, and we'll make sure that there's some connection, whether it be teacher check-ins with classroom teachers or whatnot. We'll make sure that there's some remote check-ins for students and if they're quarantined or if they're ill.
And I'm not downplaying it, but I have to be honest with you, the adults have anxiety as well. This is very anxiety provoking for us. I mean, we're responsible for keeping children safe as well as our own families and our own self. So that's why we're being so cautious. It is very anxiety provoking.
There was a question about peanut butter, and that's a great question.
You can read my answer aloud.
What'd you say?
I just answered it, but you can read my answer aloud.
We do have a couple peanut-free rooms. You'll be notified if you're unable to print in. We have an alternative butter available. If that's the case, it's delicious.
It is.
Zone changes. That's a really good question. Mr. Stevens, how are we going to notify parents? I imagine we'll do a one call now if we move from red.
Absolutely. We'll make sure that we send out a mass email so that everybody is aware, because it all depends on what the level is to make sure that we're abiding by the same protocols. Mr. Waring, do you know if there's a youth winter sports?
Yeah, the CYO basketball, and there's some youth wrestling stuff that goes on. Those individual coaches will reach out.
Did anybody answer the question about Chromebooks? Yes, Chromebooks. So they'll be distributed during the first couple days of school, and students will be able to have them at their, whenever they need them. Primary may look a little different. It's different sending a kindergarten home with a Chromebook in their book bag and not having it smashed. So we might keep those in school and make sure that they're available if they need them to go remote. We'll work on that as the year progresses.
I just have a question about so my daughter wasn't there last year because she was virtual, and this year with her being there, as far as sickness goes, she suffers from asthma and allergies. So there's definitely times out of the year where, she just has a runny nose or a cough from her asthma. How is stuff like that handled with, COVID going on?
Let's take it.
Sorry, I was answering another email.
The child has asthma and has a runny nose. First of all, I think it's really good to have on record from a doctor that your child has asthma. And then at any time they can give a doctor's, no, I know you're not going to run to the doctor every time, but just something saying you are positive this runny nose is due to this documented illness that she has or ailment, asthma. So we don't have to send her home every single time she has a runny nose, as long as your doctor and you are positive that it's from her allergies or her asthma.
Okay. So should I keep her home though, when she's like that?
Again, if you know your daughter and your doctor has given a note to the school saying she has asthma and, you know, you're positive it's from her asthma, you can send her. But
Okay.
if you feel like, you know, it seems different or she's been exposed and, you know, you can always get her tested and bring her back to school.
Okay. I just didn't know what the protocol was on that. I
And
kind of
Whitney,
just,
Whitney
go ahead.
Young is in the high school. They'll test your daughter as well. Whitney Young
I
Health.
just didn't, I don't want her to be tested unless she absolutely has to be. But I also don't want her having to quarantine for 10 days when I know that it's not anything serious, you know? And
Understood.
they do have documentation from when she was in kindergarten at the school. But if you want me to get like new documentation, I can do that.
I think it would be good for everybody, ease the school's mind, ease your mind, and then you say, look, it's on record, you know, in August that the doctor said, you know, my daughter has asthma, and you
Okay.
know your daughter best.
And just send that into the school nurse.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Both of the nurses work really well with parents, so absolutely give them a call, explain the situation, and make sure that you're on the same page with them, and you'll be good to go.
Okay.
Like I said, the good news is we're going to have some extra hands on deck this year. We've hired some extra staff, extra teachers, and extra lunch aides. Again, in an effort to make sure that everybody is as safe as possible. And with new staff, every single person that we hired had to have proof of vaccination. So nobody new is coming, be it a bus driver, a lunch aide, unless they're vaccinated. So that was just another layered approach that we use to make sure that adults don't infect adults and students don't infect students. So we're really pushing to make our school as safe as possible and try to get back to whatever our new normal looks like. So it's been an hour. Unless anybody else has any questions or comments, I want to thank you all for your time and your support. The administrators are always available for your questions. You can email them or you can call, and we look forward to seeing everybody in the next couple weeks. And stay safe, and thank you all so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And you said that the elementary kids will be eating lunch in the cafeteria this year?
Yep, half will eat in the cafeteria and half will eat in the gym.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question. I would like to know if they're going to do the same rules that they did last year, to piggyback off her question in regards to if you feel sick or whatever. Is it the same protocol where you have to go get a COVID test or you get sent home? And on top of the fact, if your child is not feeling well, if they don't go to school, do they still get to participate in class like they did last year from home, and that counts as attendance on the Chromebook?
So I'll start with the counting as attendance on the Chromebook. So it won't necessarily be exactly the same. There'll be work available to them depending on their grade. It might be that one of, you know, a parent has to come in and pick up materials, or they can access the Google Classroom to complete some work. But there won't necessarily be live streaming from the classroom all the time. It's going to be really a situational case where we may have opportunities where there'll be teacher check-ins with one of our building substitutes. There'll be support given to them, maybe through support staff that are in the building already, but it's not necessarily going to look exactly the same if students are home when they're sick. The protocols for staying home if you get sick or if you have a symptom, Albany County hasn't updated anything. So as of right now, if they're sick, then yes, they need either a doctor's note to return or they need a negative test. We anticipate having some changes in the near future from Albany County, but we're all kind of waiting to see what happens with that. But I think they're really erring on the side of caution, not knowing what's happening with the Delta variant and making sure that everyone is just monitoring their symptoms. And if there is a symptom, getting a test just to be sure.
Have have a stomach ache like before, they will get sent home, basically.
Oh, yeah, stomach aches, definitely go home, yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I have a question. When my husband got sick and we all caught COVID, we didn't show any symptoms. So if I sent him to school not knowing because of the place of work, not knowing we have it, what we do then?
I think that's kind of where we all are as a society, not necessarily knowing. You know, you can be exposed just about anywhere. And some people have symptoms and others don't have symptoms. And it's really about, you know, carefully monitoring and wearing a mask and being vigilant about, you know, protecting yourself.
No, we always wore a mask because of the type of work he does. He brought it home. We never went outside, so then we all had it. But we
Right.
didn't show any symptoms, only him.
But I think that's why I know that's why we have so many layers in place. So that's why we're cleaning. That's why we're wearing masks. That's why we're getting vaccinated. That's why we're social distancing, because this is so contagious. There isn't always symptoms and we don't know what we don't know. So that's why we have this tiered mitigated approach. We have so many things in place because if the mask didn't work, then maybe the social distancing would. If the social distancing didn't, then hopefully the vaccination will.
But he can't get vaccinated because he's 7. So
Right, but other people can, so the adults around him can, so.
no,
that's
we are, but
Right,
you know, what you bring home from work, you don't know.
Right.
So you give it to the youngest one. So now we all have it or, you know, slightly, but then he has it, but we
well,
don't.
that's why we're asking everybody that can be vaccinated to get vaccinated. That's why we're asking everybody to wear a mask. We're gonna hand sanitize, we're going to clean the desks, we're gonna do everything humanly possible. We're gonna open the windows, we have new MERV filters, we're gonna take them outside as much as possible. There will be cases of COVID. I'm certainly not gonna stand, you know, sit here and tell anybody that we're through this. But I can tell you, we're going to do everything humanly possible to protect as many students and staff members as possible.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Frank, do you have a question?
No, I wasn't here for the meeting, so I missed it.
COVID.
Well, again, thank you all for coming. You know, we're happy to stay on, but we don't have to stay on. It's past my bedtime. The recording as well as the PowerPoint, once again, will be on the website tomorrow morning.
Thank you, everybody.
Trying to stop recording.
You were